My name is Vip Vipperman. Excited to be back on the Backing the Bold podcast. Looking forward to a conversation today with Brook Parker Bello and to hear a little bit more about her story and the apps and companies that she's building. Brooke, welcome to the podcast this morning. Excited to have you with us.
Thank you, Vip. Good to see you.
Awesome. Well, hey, as we get started this morning, tell us just a little bit of your background and how you got, involved in this work as a tech entrepreneur.
Yeah, I'll tell you that, but I want to kind of highlight. So I'm wearing this watch. I belong to a group of faith believers that are all entrepreneurs, and it's kind of unique to be a part of this affluent group. Now also Clapham as well. And this watch, it was inscribed on the back Kairos for me, and it's a watch that's partnered with my friend Bo with Bravo Golf, and it was designed with the family, the Wright brothers. And as a young girl, I studied the Wright brothers and a bunch of really cool people who did first. They did first patents, they did first things, they did things that were absolutely impossible. And that was always on my mind from like 4 to 9 years old. I thought about that often. And so the fact that he sent me this watch, the Wright brothers collection, and put Kairos on the back of it, which is one of my words for the timelessness in Christ. It's just amazing. I think, when I was 11, obviously I don't have to go into it, but I was violently raped and ran away from home and was trafficked. And, building my life back took my life. And there's such a profound and incredible restoration that comes only in Christ, only in God. This is
Mm,
my personal opinion. Um, but without faith, um, I don't think that I could have made it. And so, in the process of restoration, I was an actress in Hollywood, and I'd done a ton of TV, a ton of film, and met my first mentor, who's an actor, actor John Voight. We're still close to this day. And, I started to talk to him about faith, and he led me to this incredible place of meditation. And it was there that I'm like, oh, I discovered Jesus and ended up getting born again and joining a church. But in that time, Vip, in Hollywood, I started to see kids doing different things, and I belonged to a church, and we'd be downtown or in Hollywood, or I'd be at parties. I did my first film directed by Catherine Bigelow with Angela Bassett and Ray Fiennes, Juliette Lewis, called Strange Days. And just a bunch of cool stuff. And then I got born again, and God kind of shifted my life. And so I went from being trafficked to working, to going to acting school, to working in Hollywood. And then I got radically born again, and I started to rescue kids in Hollywood. And so all these kids were like living in my apartment here and there. I worked with my church to provide services for them.
oh
And
my.
eventually I said, yeah, I said, there's got to be more to life. And so the foundation started, and I started to like rescue kids. I ended up leaving Hollywood, which I still love acting and I love art and I love creativity and innovation. But God had a different plan at that time. And so, um, and, yeah, I came into this work in entrepreneurship and tech born out of the need after the recovery of about 14,000 victims with our nonprofit.
Oh my, 14,000?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow. Um, well, so tell us a little bit about the specific problem you saw that got you to build something.
Well, when it comes to trauma and tech, there are two sides of technology, and I believe that all innovation and all great ideas do come from God. There's no great technological mind or innovator than the creator of heaven and earth. And so, in the process of working with victims, we really saw that technology could be a force for bad and be addictory when you have a high percentage of human trafficking that is relegated and propagated online, something called OSEC, online sexual exploitation of children. And so, in the process of that, and in the work we do at More to Life, which is having a name change coming soon, it was like, it's taking a really long time for individuals in trauma to be able to feel safe to share their whole story, not just part of their story. And then we're also having this like compassion fatigue and crash and burn on the side of providers, whether social workers or therapists or mentors and peer specialists, etc. And so how can we create something? And so Google had reached out to me in 2017. They sent me this long letter. They said, we want you to be a Google Fellow. I was like, what is that? And it was just really profound. So I'm still a Google Fellow alumni. And they said, we're going to show you and share with you a lot of things that tech can do and solve. And we believe because of who you are, we'd like to support you. We're going to talk about what we've done and what we plan on doing in the next, whatever, couple of decades or so. So you sign an NDA and they fly you to a Google location about 4 times a year. And then you do these monthly cohorts and you really learn about tech. And it was then that a lot of my cohorts said, how would you use technology to solve the issue of exploitation and to work with not just victims, but for it to be a solve for providers, regardless of their title. And that's when we decided to create a digital collaborative case management system, and had been mom testing and beta testing it. And we saw that we get to the issue by 40% because most victims that would go into office, like a drop-in center or a shelter, do that less and less, but they're always online. And if they don't have a cell phone that they can pay for, they know how to stand by a Starbucks or a McDonald's and use Wi-Fi on a broken phone or a phone with no true cellular site, but through Wi-Fi. So how can we support them and support the provider? So 40% getting to the solve, getting to the story, and also the less compassion fatigue on the provider side by having more information. And so what we call it is the scalable compassion in the age of crises.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, and I mean, you started with a nonprofit, right? You mentioned, but you moved to the for-profit solution side. And I know you still continue the nonprofit work because it's incredible work. Why the for-profit side? Like, because of the scalability, because of what made you make that switch?
I think that, when you found a nonprofit and you are focused on recovery, on mental behavioral health, on housing, on fundraising, and all these things that you build off this extraordinary staff to do this work nationally. And then there's the veins and prisms that affect the global issue, which is absolutely important. But then you realize for investors, um, the for-profit model that supports the nonprofit is going to be much more appealing. And then also, VIP, the issues of root causes and road change is relegated by the variables of demographics that also need to utilize the software. And so when you think of the root causes of exploitation, you have a plethora of various types of traumas. And in order to pursue the precipitation of those and to effectively help individuals and families, the software will eventually be used by others. So not just victims of exploitation, but other types of trauma, and also the preventatory aspects of how we utilize our gamified platform, how we utilize the VR space, how we utilize the data, the export process, the goals, tasks, and challenges features, so that therapists understand issues and entire families are able to be supported. And so the for-profit model absolutely works really well, and it works really well for investors.
That's fantastic. So, I mean, thinking about it, you've got the opportunity, just to serve a lot of people in this model. And there's so many people that have experienced trauma. There's trauma in serving the military. There's trauma in going through like not having a crime committed against you. There's trauma in being in a an earthquake or severe storms and that kind of people who've gone through tornadoes or something like that. So there's a lot of opportunity. Once you've created a project to serve people that have gone through trauma, there's a lot of other people who've been affected by trauma as well that you guys can serve too.
Yeah, and then
Um,
we're rebalancing provider workflows.
mm,
It's just as much for the victim as it is for the one that's
the
providing the
provider.
care, and
Yeah.
that's something that's not typical.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds amazing because you have an instant channel partner.
Mhm.
We find a lot of times like, it's sometimes hard to get to that end consumer of the product, like the person using it. In this case, it might be a little challenging to get the product all the way to the trafficked person for them to, or the survivor of trafficking to find it. But if you're going through the organizations that are serving those, then they've got, hundreds, if not thousands of people that they're serving too. So it just multiplies your effort significantly.
Also, when you're getting it out, when we launch early next year, the mobile app that's non-custodial, meaning it's B2B to C, so that to C part, that end user wherever they are, what's
Hmm.
beautiful about that is that 1 in 4 girls, women, is raped in the United States. 1 in 5 on a college campus, and every 60 seconds in our nation, right?
Oh my word.
In addition to a high percentage of boys, 1 in 6.5 or so, which is declining, and so it's beginning to be 1 in 6, and it's this exacerbative issue that is an absolute challenge because then you have a breakdown of true connectedness with individuals and the understanding of community and family and safety. And so when you're launching a system like that, you believe it or not, individuals end up wanting to play a game or wanting to connect and engage and understand. And so they'll end up downloading the mobile app because they haven't really shared their story. They haven't even told anybody that there was a date rape or that there was a violence against them or they were violated when they were little. And when we have those traumas happen to us and we haven't healed from them, let's remember that the issue of human trafficking, about 30% is generational. And so the parent was trafficked or sexually violated and they never got help, so they didn't see the red flags in their child. And so we believe that in the studies and surveys that we've done, once the mobile app launches non-custodial, you'll be able to go through institutionally, but also on your own. And we think that'll be very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. Can you help me frame one thing? You used a couple numbers that I think are really powerful to hear, like the 1 in 4 and the 1 in 5. Um, but I'm sure like some people are listening to this and they're like, I know 40 women, and n- in that group of 40, there's not one person that's been raped, before or had an experience like that. And
Mhm.
there, so can you talk a little bit about just um, the folks that are more vulnerable to those types of situations or more likely to be in that group of the 1 in 4? Because you say 1 in 4 women across America, and that's
Yeah.
so many people.
So rape is the third, 3.5 largest crime in the United States,
Wow.
with less than 10% being prosecuted, or less than 3% being prosecuted and less than 10% or so ever going to trial.
Oh, wow.
Um, so some people have a hard time ever sharing, and
Wow.
some individuals are not sure if they've been violated because the way that violators or manipulators work is they make you think it's your fault. When we work with
Ah,
victims on college campuses, I say, well, you have this young girl, she's 18, she's a freshman, right? She goes to a party, she kisses a boy, which you've had cases like this, but then she says, that's as far as I want to go. He goes further, she
ah.
fights and then stops. That's called a date rape, um,
Mm,
a real type of sexual violence.
absolutely.
And it's this area around consent
Mm,
that's often misunderstood, which is why we do programs that work with young men and men to understand the power that they possess in today's world. But
mm,
I think that the data is real. It's not my data. This is largely known around the United States. This is a massive crime, and the work we're doing is to assist in preventing it and to provide care for those that have never come forth to share their story. So
and what I'm hearing you say is all, I mean, based on what you're saying, like they're all women are, it's possible. Like there's certain groups that may be more vulnerable. Like we hear about like folks coming out of foster care or more, but
to care.
anybody is at risk.
Well, if my mentor's friend Rosemary Tribble, her husband was the senator, Paul Tribble of Virginia, she had this incredible program called Care Bears.
Hmm.
She's an elder. She is a dear friend of one of my mentors, both women of God. And she was doing radio in Virginia, Newport News, some years ago. Does a lot of stuff. I done some stuff with her at Liberty University and some Care Bear packaging and just a bunch of stuff. And she actually created a little comic book that goes with the bears that has my story in it. And she was leaving the radio station, and she was raped right in Newport News. And her desire to create these Care Bears um, with her Fear to Freedom nonprofit was born out of that. And
It's
so
powerful.
it's and she's the type of individual with her husband being a senator and living in a really safe neighborhood, doing really incredible work. So it really doesn't hit a demographic necessarily more
Hmm.
overall when you look at the full data, but I think the most vulnerable would be kids in foster care, fatherless homes, or homes. If you look at some of Josh McDowell's stats, if there's a stepfather or a boyfriend of a parent, a mother
Hmm.
not really there for the right reasons. Obviously, you have the sexual violence of 100 and something Olympic athletes who were violated by the doctor, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And they never told. For several years, they never said a word. It was one Olympic athlete that told, then 100 and something other girls from incredible families
Wow.
that he sexually assaulted me.
Hmm.
Um, and so they didn't feel safe to share it. And so if you think about that demographic, but yeah, obviously kids in poverty, kids in fatherless homes, kids who are challenged, behaviorally, cognitively challenged, obviously the most vulnerable among us. But it happens on college campuses, it happens at high schools, it happens in the US Olympics.
No. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I just think it helps the listeners. Sometimes we hear stats and we just don't know how
Mhm.
they, how close they are or what that means. And
Yeah,
so love that you're willing to take a minute and dive into that for us.
yeah,
So one of the questions, one of the things we were talking about is leading up to show is your app is coming soon. It's actually should be, you're doing work now, but fully released in the
yeah.
next season. Talk a little bit about the timing of that. And
Mhm.
then I was interested in hearing some of the other things you're doing now that are also having an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question or conversation that I'm having with you. So I think a platform for scalable healing is what we're doing. And so coming home, it's supporting survivors and providers with this kind of AI guided tools and immersive support and gamified workflows. And so in the process of beta testing the digital collaborative case management system with the funding from Eagle Ventures and other funders, we're closing our pre-seed round now. We are building out that AI companion. And that AI companion, without saying too much, is epic. And the guardrails around the AI and the language model for it to be a safe place, in addition to dealing with partnering with companies that like QHS Labs in terms of surveys, and in terms of red flag alerts if someone is possibly suicidal, and that conversational piece. We're adding also with the funding provided something called Sound Surge. And Sound Surge is if you're playing a game within our system, if you're chatting with your provider, if you're doing ghost tasks and challenges, or if you're journaling, you can choose to listen to music or not. And the music that we're utilizing, without saying too much, is just kind of like a melodic white noise, but it's music meant to calm and soothe the neurotransmitters. And so that'll be a beta inside the system that we're excited to see how users respond. I think that one of the other things we're doing is we're certifying we have two patents, and the third trademark that we have is called prescription gaming. And so we're building out a certification process that's going to be really exciting around that currently. And so when we relaunch early next year with the new website, a new logo, the AI will be completed by the end of October.
Awesome.
So we'll be excited to show that off. in addition to a total iteration of the system and a whole new design. And we're bringing on a VP of sales. And so we're moving and grooving, as my dad would say,
That's awesome.
to really have something robust and in alignment with our goals.
That's awesome. Yeah, entrepreneurs, man, constantly growing, constantly building, continuing to make it better and serve the community more
Mhm.
effectively.
Yeah, and
Well,
that therapeutic gameplay, the AI companion, the provider tools and case management. And so building out the AI on the mobile app side for the end user, but also building out an AI on the platform, the web app for the provider.
providers. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Man, well, can you tell me a little bit about some of the impact that you're having now? I know you can't go into detailed stories about like a person and their experience, but just give us a little bit of an understanding of, how providers might be using it or some of the numbers of people that y'all software is touching now.
I think now, in the process of this iteration, everyone's really excited. So, prior to the funding and up to date, been beta testing with 15 counter trafficking organizations that collectively serve thousands of victims. And the ability for them to aggregate data to understand their victim. And the stories we're hearing is that victim survivor champions, is what I say, these incredible survivors are able to learn and see all that they've accomplished and the things that are being provided to them that they didn't know. They're also getting to understand who they are quicker by having a system and by being able to chat and having the safety in that connecting to the one that's providing in a way that they didn't have before. And so it puts the power back in their hands and it cuts the compassion fatigue. And I think that's important on both sides. There's compassion fatigue and burnout for providers, but in the area of trauma, there's also compassion fatigue in trauma when someone is trying to heal. They get tired of trying to understand why it happened to them and if they're ever going to feel better, if they're ever going to feel normal in what they think normal is, when we all know there is no normal really, but normal to them, if they're ever going to truly discover their identity and if their life is ever going to be of value. And when they're able to have that perpetual journal that never ever goes, they download the app and it's still there. When they're able to see all that's provided, when they're able to share in a safe space, the stories are that they just feel better about who they are. And so we believe also that this is a confidence builder. And for software to be able to build confidence is exciting. And so now, as we incorporate the AI and the new design, now when you open up the app, it's really, really cool. But it has a design that is something that wouldn't shock anyone, wouldn't be like so unique that you go, oh, I've never seen that before. It's how it's utilized that you've never seen before. But the new design is something that you go, I've never seen that before, because how the AI will float down and you can use emojis or language to begin to talk and then go in to be able to connect with your provider and do a bunch of other fun things, and really begin to relegate your behavior and your journey and your goals and your tasks and your challenges and build your life. And your provider is able to see that because you're sharing it with them. That's going to be exciting. Um, so yeah.
Dude, love it. Well, uh, let's see. Looking at time, I'm trying to think. I want to hear. Tell me a little bit, if you could, about your work in we'll say the demand side of the conversation. I'm not sure if that's the way that you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah, prevention side, because I know you're doing all this technology. It's going to help survivors, help those people who've had trauma in their life, but you also have a heart to not have it happen in the first place. And so, interested a little bit in some of the things that you've been seeing in that space.
Yeah. So about 11 years ago, I created a program called Restorative Justice in Demand Education in Florida. And I went before the Senate Judiciary Committee and they approved sort of the first, and I helped co support this legislative bill, a couple of them. And one of them was education for perpetrators, not just jail time or paying of fines, but how can there be a change in the trajectory of how men and boys think? And so I had several meetings with Pam Bondi, who was then the Attorney General of Florida, and she ended up giving me her and Rick Scott an award in Florida. But that restorative justice in a man education is secular and court appointed, but churches started to want to use it at a really high level. And so we decided to create a faith based version. And so this faith based version is called Kingdom Sons, the Legacy of Fatherhood. And then the log line is a mandate for all men. There's something powerful about the legacy of fatherhood, which I consider a dying art. And,
Mm,
and I say that because we have high rates of divorce and we have high rates of fatherlessness. And Josh McDowell, who I love so much his work and study his books, talks about this in a lot of his liturgy and material. And he had one stat that if a child grows up without a father, they're over 400% likely to have challenges at a really high level in life. And if it's a stepfather, it's even greater because
mm,
sometimes with the stepfather, generally speaking, there's a disconnect, as in, is this my child or not? And these are studies he did over years. And so that how we relegate and deal with family and community and understanding just the love of God is so important.
mm,
When we think about demand, sexual exploitation is camouflaged in a highly sexualized society. And unfortunately, men are still the largest perpetrator. Um, and so I love men just as much as I do all human beings. And I want to not only preserve the power of the legacy of father, but I want men to understand whether they're wealthy, whether they're in poverty, whether they're searching in life, whether they've been incarcerated, whether they never have. Men have a different set of challenges than women do. And we've seen this, but I've never met a survivor, male or female, boy or girl, that didn't love their father, even if he was not a great dad, or didn't long for a father. And so prevention to me is related to the legacy of fatherhood. And so
ah,
we think this will have a mass impact on men and boys really understanding the power that they possess around consent, around
mm,
sexual assault and sexual violence prevention, around their own issues, around pornography uh, prevention and addiction prevention to pornography, how to avoid it,
wow.
um, and all of these types of things. And it's to empower them, which is what we do. Some people, I will say this, in court appointed courses, call it a John school. Um, and so if a typical guy gets pinged for trying to purchase a human being, if it's a 18 or over, he typically in the United States will have to go to a John school. And I just hate that name because I know a lot of nice guys named John. Um, so we've always served Starbucks and bagels and donuts and tried to encourage men to feel at peace in the program. And that's been really successful. Um, and so this faith-based side of it is different because it's the saturation of brotherhood, peer specialists, and biblical principles. And so our program also has male ambassadors. Tomorrow, I'll be interviewing for the program the writer of the movie, the book, The Shack, and the movie. He's going to share his story of pornography challenges and how he got through that, why he wrote the book, The Shack, why he produced the movie. And we're going to interview a really well-known baseball player, a pitcher, I won't say who, and our ambassador, Phil Zahn, who's a powerful man of God, who's also one of the ambassadors for the program, is in there. And so we think that men and boys will really relate to it. It's meant to be upbeat, although there is some hard data and some, when they begin to understand that they can help prevent these issues of demand by not allowing boys to just be boys and supporting men who are challenged in divorce, coming out of challenges that they're having a hard time. And then we found this that about 28% of the men that have come through the program were violated themselves. If it wasn't sexual in nature, it was physical, and they never shared it with anyone, not their wives, not their friends, because they were ashamed. And so,
Wow.
yeah, this is a way of of just giving men a place and space to do what men need to do with themselves. So, and that's heal. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it really you surely have a passion for helping people heal
mhm.
and find their identity, true identity. Um, and I just think that's incredible. Like whether you're doing it on the front end and helping a certain, population, doing it on the back end and helping the population, or just this whole picture. So talk to me about like, man, if this work just blows up across the country and the technology, just expands, what does a future world look like? Where people are getting this kind of training early and often, and so they're never violating a person, or a person on the back end who has gone through this just has, as soon as they feel more comfortable to share, or maybe they get help as soon as possible. But if you had a vision for what the future could look like, help us understand that a little bit, where you see things are going.
I had a couple of trips. Well, I guess over the last decade, I've probably been in the White House. Not that that matters, but when you go to the meetings there and you're able to meet with these incredible nonprofits, IGM and a bunch of nonprofits all around the United States, and you have these kind of think tanks and you're having these deep conversations about what will America look like in 50 years if we don't do A or B.
Wow.
And the data shows that if we don't do this now and prevent this, because biblically speaking, we can't end murder. We can't end rape. We can't end sin, right?
Mm,
But we can prevent it. And so in 50 years, if we don't do this, prostitution will be legal in the United States. And because of that, we'll have more trafficking. Marriage will be kind of a thing of the past. It'll be something that the connectedness and engagement um, with men and women in this really unique way and powerful way that builds community and family will be something that is relegated by the current kind of hookup culture that we have, and get married, not get married, whatever, who cares?
mm,
And so the loss of that kind of power um, and love and connectedness. But if we do something about it, um, I always say to people that the church sits inside the kingdom,
mm,
God, not the kingdom inside the church. The expanse of the kingdom is vast. And so this work is really, for me as a woman of faith, it is building the kingdom, thus building the church. And it's empowering believers and people of faith to love others, whether they're people of faith or not, and to be a problem or to be a solution to the problems we're facing. And so
mm,
50 years, we'll have a better world, even though scripture says what's sort of going to happen at some point. Our job, just like Jesus's job, was to go and fight and walk and believe in the justiceness and the kindness and the goodness in others. And I think that if we do this the right way, we'll see more good than we will bad. And that's what we want while we're here on this side of heaven. So,
dude, that's awesome. I like it. Um, Talk to me about if someone's a listener today and they've heard something that really connects to them. Kind of the two options, obviously, kind of based on where you're serving. If they're on the front end, possibly male, but just dealing with these issues and that sort of thing, or um, and need see like, hey, maybe I need to get some help, or maybe I should learn a little bit more about this. Where can they go for that? I mean, give me the websites. And then again, on the other end, if someone happens to know a survivor or happens to have had trauma in their life themselves, where do they go? What recommendation would you have for them?
absolutely. I think for survivors, generally, you want to go to either the Blue Campaign or 1-888-37-37-888 was his National Human Trafficking Resource Center, run by an incredible woman, Megan Lundstrom, who is doing just incredible at the Polaris Project. So you want to do that. But you also want to reach organizations like ours, the new website coming, but the new name being moretoliving.org, root causes real change, formerly More to Life, MORETOO Life, organization that I founded that, as CEO emeritus, beginning to build out the tech and work for the other company more, I'm still working on behalf of More to Life as the founder. And I think that um, we can always connect you to anyone around the nation that's with our digital advocates. And so MORETO living.org. And obviously, you can call 1-888-3737-888 or the Blue campaign, BLU campaign, which is part of Homeland Security.
Nice. And on the other side, like on the front end, if they need the help with the sons and
Kingdom
fatherhood, and that's
Absolutely. It's also moretoliving.org, and
okay. Same
you can
place.
always email us currently at biz, at moretolife.org.
Nice.
And that new digital program will launch the end of August,
Man,
and it'll be available on stan.com.
awesome. It's so amazing to see new resources being built, new solutions being found, and for people just standing up in a powerful way to provide hope and help to those in need. So thanks for leading that charge, Brooke. Just really appreciate the work that you do. Um, and yeah, excited that we get to be a part of the story at Eagle as we invest in the fund, so invest in the company. So thanks for taking the time today. Really appreciate it, and wish you the greatest of success.
Thank you so much. And after all your international travels, I hope you get some rest too.
Yeah.